Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Josh Bam Bam Brown. Welcome back to Brown Overboard. Now, there are a lot of differences to the way that I grew up, to the way that I was raised, and to the way that I lived the majority of my life than to what people would call normal life or the vast majority of life. As I've said many times, there's no such thing as normal. There's just mass consensus. Whatever the largest group of humans says is normal, that's what is normal. That's what's thought of as being normal. The only actual normal is nature and the laws of nature and what nature dictates as normal. What animals do is normal because they're animals and they exist within nature. Humans look at things, especially nowadays, humans look at things as if there are humans and then there's nature, as if it's two different things, as if it's something that we are separate of instead of being part of. And nothing could be further from the truth, because humans are just as much a part of nature as the wolves and the whales, as the birds and the bees and all the other critters out there. We are just as much a part of nature as everything that you see. When you see a coyote out there, whether it's in California in the middle of the city, which, yes, I have seen, stopped at a stoplight in the middle of Los Angeles, I saw a coyote run out once, or whether you're in the bush of Alaska and you see a wolf up on the distant hill. Both those creatures are just as much a part of nature, and so are you. A big difference I noticed and have noticed in my life is light pollution. So growing up, for me, when the lights were off, when the generator was off, when the boat was turned off and the sun went down, the vast majority of everywhere that I ever went to sleep, I could see all the stars in the sky. I could see the heavens clearly. I have seen the auroras many times, but I have seen so many starlit skies, so many falling stars, so many nights of twinkling beauty in the pinholes in the curtain of night. And that's something that people in the city don't get. Even in towns, people don't get that. Like, that was something I noticed. Like, when you're in a harbor at night in a town, lots of lights. You're not going to see the stars. And even in smaller towns, there are always lights. There are always street lights. There are always people's lights. There are always porch lights. There are all kinds of lights. And then when you get into bigger cities, there's just all kinds of light. Like, you're somewhere like New York, you are not going to see the stars. It is just covered in light pollution all over the place. You know, there you've got like billboards and house lights and street lights and cars all the time. And it's that way even in smaller towns where there are cars driving around and you have all the stores lit up all the time. And so that's something that I think people, even if you realize that's a thing, I don't know to what degree people realize that's a thing, because people just get used to things being the way that they are. You know, people get used to there being that light pollution. They get used to there not being any stars in the sky. Now, there is a modern disconnect between humans and nature. And I think that it's definitely been perpetuated throughout the generations, because as things progressed, industrial revolution and all kinds of things like that, and the advent of, electricity, television, radio, internet, and then you have multiple generations of individuals growing up within cities and having virtually to no connection to nature, to actual nature. It's nice that a lot of places have parks, but I'm talking actual nature. And I think there is a thing that is lacking within the soul when you don't have that kind of connection. There's concrete, and like I said, the artificial light and the screens people are always staring at, and you get complacent to it being that way when you've grown up in that world. So for me, my family has always been within nature. So for me, I saw the cities from outside looking in, and everybody else sees the cities from inside looking out. So for me, I come from nature, and then I'm looking at the concrete jungle and the steel and the glass and the cars and all those things, where other people, and I'm looking at that as somewhere that I go and then leave, and somewhere that I experience as a thing, where other people are looking at the city as their anchor and as the real, and then they go out and experience the wilderness and then come back to the real quotations. So it's just a difference of perspective. I think there's a real difference of perspective in that way with what you've experienced and what you continue to experience in your life. And there are so many ways that we try to control the environment, like air conditioning, for instance. Now, I'm not against air conditioning. I probably wouldn't survive in some cases without air conditioning, with how hot it can get. But that's another thing that separates from the reality of nature. For instance, when you go from like when it's getting cold outside and you go from summer to winter, humans these days go from one temperature controlled environment to another. They go from their temperature controlled house or apartment, and they go into a temperature controlled car or public transportation, and then they go into temperature controlled offices for work, and then back and forth. And the only exposure they get to the actual ambient temperature of the world is the in between, going from one temperature controlled environment to the other. That's one reason why a lot of people have trouble getting really cold in the winter. It's one reason why we were always able to walk around in t-shirts in really cold weather, even when there was snow on the ground. Now, if it gets too cold, obviously that's going to be cold to anybody. But there's still a difference even when it's super cold, because you're able to withstand that super cold better than somebody else. So it's going to be cold to both of you, but you're still going to take it better. And one of the reasons for that is adapting to the changing of the temperature. So as it gradually gets colder, it doesn't just go from being hot summer to cold winter. There's that gradual change in temperature of it getting cooler and cooler and cooler. And that gives your body time to adapt to what's coming. It gives your body time to adapt going from a hot summer to a cooler winter. And it gives your blood time to thicken up. It gives your body time to adapt. It gives your body time to realize, oh, this is what's happening. We need to gear for the colder weather now. And the same in the summer, where you start adjusting to it getting warmer and warmer and warmer. And then your body's more able to handle and more prepared to handle the hotter temperatures. But humans now have a massive disconnect between the changing of the seasons. And so we just temperature control everything. And then we're not exposed to that. Another disconnect in that way with people is being out in the rain. Most people do not go out and just experience being in the rain. And that is definitely something you should do. No, I'm not saying go stand out in a thunderstorm and get struck by lightning, but standing out in a nice downpour, standing out in the rain and just getting totally drenched and experiencing that and feeling that and letting it soak into your skin, it's invigorating and it revitalizes you. It helps to connect you to nature. There's a thing that people talk about, like grounding, where you take your shoes off and you walk around on the ground, and that is definitely a real thing. That's not just a hippy-dippy kind of thing. That is definitely a real thing of getting that connection to nature. It's like the standing in the rain, walking on the ground, touching a tree every now and then. It's like that. It's like the thing they say, get out there and touch some grass. That's actually, that's true. It's actually based in some reality, because there is that connection to nature that we're all missing. And I'm not saying that everybody has to go out there and live in the wilderness like a Jeremiah Johnson. You don't have to, abandon all technology and never go into the city and just, go out into the forest and exist out there barefooted. I'm just saying, look up every now and then. Look at the stars, look at the clouds, look at the sky, touch a tree, walk around barefooted, smell the earth. Feel some dirt in your hands. Get out there and touch some grass, because there is that connection and we need it. I think that is one thing I think that adds to people being unhappy, feeling unfulfilled, feeling antsy, not being able to like just sit with themselves, is that disconnect from nature. And you can get some real meditative instances just by, sitting on the grass and watching the clouds. And we all know this. Like, you can feel it. Even if you're somebody that has like multiple generations of living in a city, you can't stand bugs or camping or any of those things, you still feel it. You still feel it when you look at a flower, when you smell a flower, when you're walking through a park, when you're looking at the birds. All of those things are whispering that connection to you, that connection to the wild. And there is definitely, ways to help you connect to those things. And there's a lot of stuff that you can do. There are a lot of things that we have always done. Like, I grew up hunting and fishing and all of that stuff. But like, take a day trip, drive out somewhere where there isn't light pollution and just look at the stars. Because just the little things like that can definitely make a difference in your life and your perspective of nature in that way. For me, I like to experience new things. I like to go new places. I like to travel, and I like to see the cities, and I like to see the sights. And I enjoyed going to New York, and I've enjoyed going to Las Vegas, and I've enjoyed all of these different places that I've gone. And there's always something to enjoy about it, but I do feel a little claustrophobic after a little while. I feel a little like closed in, and I start noticing, well, wait, there's no dirt on the ground, and I can't find any rocks anywhere that aren't like placed here and aren't actually sitting on the ground. I had one little freak out moment actually when I was spending a little time in New York, because it was like there was too much concrete. There was no way to get to some actual dirt. And for me, I think that's one reason why I've always had such an extreme connection to the ocean. So for me, I feel very at peace on the ocean. I feel very at peace staring out at the sea. I feel very at peace when I'm on a boat. I really enjoy to travel in that way. I really enjoy every aspect of being on the water and the way that it moves and the way that you move on the water. And there is a real connection to the earth and to the planet itself when you're on the ocean. And I don't want to sound all like that, but when I'm on the water and I'm out there like that, I feel at one with the earth. And there is definitely, a disconnect that people have in that way. And you know it even if you don't know it. Breathing exercises are a great thing that you can do. Everybody breathes to exist. We all breathe in and out. It's impossible to live without air, as far as I know. Nobody can do that. And nobody really breathes enough. And that's a small thing that you can do to help bring you back to a little bit of your connection with the wild and your connection with nature and your connection with the earth, is doing breathing exercises. Now, I love breathing. That sounds really silly, but like, I really enjoy the sensation of taking a breath. It's invigorating. And most people just breathe on autopilot. And you have to stop yourself and actually take like a meaningful, deep breath and feel it go all the way in and down and become one with you, and then exhale. When I was a kid, very young, back on Gypsy Girl, my dad taught me how to do breathing exercises because my dad was a diver for a very long time. He had been a diver since he was a kid. He had done free diving and all kinds of stuff. And my dad, no exaggeration, I've seen him do it, could hold his breath for 5 minutes, easy, very easily. He said his record, I think, was 6 minutes. So for Dad, that means it was probably more than that because he would always undercut stuff. He would never brag. He never wanted to be the guy that was bragging about things, so he would always downplay it. But I had seen him and actually timed him holding his breath for like 5 minutes. So anyway, I remember I have these really cool memories of being a really, really young kid sitting on the back deck of Gypsy. And we were on anchor in the middle of nowhere. And the engine's off and, we're sitting on the back deck and I can hear the water splashing on the hull of Gypsy. And my dad and I are sitting on the back deck, legs crossed, and he's telling me about, how to focus and how to clear your mind and listen to your heartbeat and listen to your breath going in and out and to let go of your sense of self and embrace your oneness with nature and with what's around you and the wind and the tide. And he would teach me to do the breathing exercises and take 8 to 10 deep, meaningful breaths and feel each one. And I've been doing that since then. So I've been doing breathing exercises at least once a day, every day, since I was like 6. And I will do it multiple times a day because I will just do breathing exercises throughout the day when I think about it or when I don't think about it. I've noticed on autopilot, I will just stop and take like a really good couple deep breaths and then keep going. And it's invigorating and it's something that is way overlooked. And you're going to, I can feel some people rolling their eyes right now. But if you do this, if you actually stop and do it at least once a day, taking those deep, meaningful breaths and stop what you're doing and actually concentrate and feel it and mean it, it will definitely make a difference. I think it will make a difference in your mood. It will make a difference in your behavior. It will make a difference in your day. It will make a big difference in the way you feel connected or disconnected to the world. And so many people, the vast majority of individuals, I think, don't do something like that. Everybody breathes very shallowly. Everybody only uses the top portion of their lungs. If you take a really deep breath, you can feel it go all the way into the bottom of your lungs. And I do that. I feel like I'm suffocating if I don't do that. If I don't stop and do that, every now and then, I probably take 100 deep breaths a day because I'm just doing it kind of all the time. But like I said, I've been doing those breathing exercises, actually sitting down and doing the 8 to 10 once a day since I was 6 years old, every day. Breathing has always been a big thing for me. Like I said, I enjoy breathing. It's very important to me, and it just helps center me. I think it helps bring me connection to myself and to nature. Now, don't start out. If you're somebody that doesn't do breathing exercises, do not start out with the 8 to 10 deep breaths. You will probably hyperventilate. You might pass out because your brain is not used to getting that amount of oxygen. Is one thing that happens with people too. So your brain's not used to getting the amount of oxygen it actually needs. And so your brain is oxygen deprived. But when you go shoving in a lot of oxygen, all of a sudden it's not used to it. That's not good. You might have adverse effects because of that. So you need to do it slowly. I would suggest if you're somebody that never does this stuff, just do 1 to 2 good deep breaths. Stop what you're doing. Find a nice quiet place, the quietest place you can. And even if you can't find a quiet place, just do this anyway. Do it anywhere. Don't use that as an excuse not to do it. I'm getting off subject, but a lot of people use location and time and what's going on around them and their mindset and all of these things to justify not doing the thing that they need to do. And oftentimes, if you wait until things are lined up and you have the opportunity to do the thing, you're not going to do the thing. You're just going to keep putting it off, and there's not going to be a time when it's perfect to do it. So if you're able to find a nice quiet spot, find somewhere that you can, be alone with your thoughts and just sit there and do the breathing exercises, or if you have to do it at your desk at work, do that too, but do them. And start off with just 2 good deep breaths. You want to just take the deep breath. You don't want to force it. You want to breathe in nice and slow and gentle, and don't try to cram it into your lungs. Just nice and slow and gentle, and breathe in as deeply as you can and feel it go down into your lower lungs. And then you want to hold that just for a moment, not trying to hold your breath. You just want to hold it for a moment and feel it. And then you want to slowly exhale, and then do that twice, and then go back to your normal breathing and whatever it is you're doing. Now, very quickly, you will build up to being able to do multiple deep breaths, and then you will get up to the 8 to 10 that you should do every day, because everybody should be doing 8 to 10 deep, concentrated breaths every day, because it's very good for you, and it clears out your lungs. It cleans them out. Now, obviously, it's better when you have great, fresh, wonderful air to do that with. Like on the back deck of Gypsy Girl in Southeast Alaska, wonderful, crisp, awesome air to be putting into your lungs that way. But if you are somewhere where you don't have the opportunity for that, just get the freshest air you can. Open a window, clear it out, which is another thing you should definitely do with wherever your dwelling is. You should definitely air it out every now and then. Like, you should get some actual air in there. And that disconnect with nature, I think, is another reason why people like houseplants and things, and why people get pets and feel drawn to those kinds of things, is because that gives you a little bit of that connection back to the natural world. And as generations go on, as technology advances, I think that it's even more and more important for there to be that connection to nature. I think there should be nature classes or something like in school and stuff that teach kids about these kinds of things, because it's something that is very easy to get kind of pushed aside. It's something that is very easy to get overlooked, and it's something that is, I think, incredibly important for you to put more in the forefront of your mind, that connection with nature and the natural world, which is something that everyone longs for. And as I was saying, with technology and the way it advances, and multiple generations living within the technology and within the cities and the steel and the glass and the construction, it is more and more important to teach the younger generation to have that connection and that that respect for the natural world, that respect for it, and to find that balance between being a human and existing in society and existing within civilization, but also being connected and part of nature and the natural world. As you can probably tell, it's something that I'm a little bit passionate about. And it's something that I think about quite often, actually. I know that it is something that for my dad was incredibly important, because he grew up having some of that nature experience. Now, he grew up a city kid in Fort Worth, Texas, but he always had that exposure to like a little bit of the ranching life and a little bit of that farm life. And it was always his dad's dream to retire out to his horse ranch. And so my dad had horses, and he had animals, and he had experiences and time on farms. And he later in his life did a lot of exploring, a lot of hiking, a lot of surfing, a lot of going all over the place and living in tents and traveling. And I know one of the things that led him to Alaska eventually was that he said he wanted to go somewhere where he could travel for days without hitting a fence, and that he could travel for days without seeing someone's name carved into a tree. Because he said in the lower 48 he would find places that he thought were totally, like, oh, this is pretty far out there, right? This is the wilderness. And then he'd come across a fence or a marker, or somebody had carved their name in a tree, and he said it was always very disappointing. There was that disillusionment of, it not being the wilderness that he was seeking. And for Dad, for me, I existed within nature. And so I have a completely different mindset and perspective of all this stuff. For Dad, he came from the city, and he was one of those people. But he realized it, and then he broke free of that. And then he embraced and existed within nature and within the forest. And that's where he found himself. That's where he became Dad. That's where he became one with Alaska and one with the wilderness. And as corny as it might sound, my dad very much was one with the forest. He loved it. He loved everything about it. He was super comfortable out there. My dad could just walk into the wilderness with nothing and be super comfortable. He knew every way to move through the forest, every creature, he could navigate by the stars. He knew all the different trees and animals and tracks and how they all behaved and what they all did. He was very much a part of the forest, and he very much embraced being a part of the forest. And he found himself so much out there that Dad really did not like coming back to civilization. Now, there were some aspects that, of course, Dad was like, oh, this is cool or that's cool, and let's take a hot shower, and let's, go get some Risky's barbecue when we went through Texas. But Dad was never at home in the cities. Dad was never at home in the towns. Dad was never at home on a freeway. Dad found himself in the wilderness, and that's where he wanted to stay. That was very much a part of Dad, because he felt that disconnect very strongly when he was young. He told me that. We had talks about that stuff. And he said he didn't really know what it was at the time, but he felt that there was that disconnect between himself and the natural world. And it's one reason he was drawn to like his horses and things that his family had. And he was drawn to want to hunt and fish, and he was drawn to skiing and diving and swimming and all of those things. And once he fully embraced being a part of the wilderness in Alaska, he couldn't go back. He couldn't let it go. It was too ingrained in who he was, because he broke free of the mindset of separation between humans and nature. And he found himself in the nature and didn't want anything different. It's unfortunate, and it definitely bothers me that Dad passed away outside of Alaska, and he wasn't in the forest when he died, that he wasn't able to spend his last moments in the world that he loved so much. I know he did everything he could to try and set the family up, and he enjoyed trying to build up like a ranch, and with the horses and the longhorns and all that stuff. He tripped out over it. He loved it. He loved the horses. And it was super cool to get to do some of that stuff with Dad. So that I treasure. That was very cool. It was really cool to get to do that stuff with Dad. But the fact that he gave up that part of himself with the forest. I mean, this mountain property we have is backed up to the Canadian wilderness. It's not like it's in the middle of town. It's very much in the middle of nowhere once you're up on top of the mountain. But like when Dad passed, we were actually staying in a couple rent houses down in Loomis off of the mountain, and it just didn't feel right. I remember the last day that I was in there talking to Dad, and the last few conversations we had, and everything in me wanted to be able to just grab Dad and just taking back out into the wilderness and to be able to sit on the beach and look out at the tide, while the sun set and while he faded away. But unfortunately, that's not how it went, not how things closed out. But then I had a lot of amazing, wonderful memories. He taught me a lot of everything that I'm trying to impart onto other people now. It's one of the reasons why I'm talking about these things. I know that a lot of people don't get that kind of wisdom put in front of them in their life, and I was born with that. And fortunately, I'm an idiot, but fortunately I was smart enough to know that. Fortunately, I was smart enough to realize what I was given and who I was talking to and who was teaching me these things. And I was smart enough to realize not to take it for granted and to understand what he meant when he was teaching me these things. And I was very, very blessed and fortunate to have that and to get to have that in my life. And so that's one of the reasons I want to impart as much of that as I possibly can to other people. And if it helps someone, great. If nobody wants to hear it, whatever, I don't care. But if it helps someone, then awesome. I think that's great. And one of the lessons, like I was telling y'all guys, that my dad taught me is the breathing lessons. And so that's something that you can do in your everyday life to help ground yourself and be more connected with nature. All right, guys, I'm going to get going. Y'all guys have a good one. Stay safe, respect the danger, and I will see you next time on another episode of Brown Overboard.